I have no idea.
Recording. All right, perfect. Hello, Creative Spirits listeners. This is Sherry McCarthy from Creative Mermaids. Kate Darnell of Gumboots by the Sea is not with us today. She's actually a birthing partner for a good friend of hers who went 3 weeks early. So she's quite sad because she's really excited to talk with Mariëlle Smith of MS Wordsmith.
Yes.
But it's not happening today, unfortunately. Spirit had other ideas. So hopefully by the time you listen to this, we can say whether it was a boy or a girl and how it went. But instead today we're going to talk me and Mariëlle by ourselves, talking books, writing, craft, coaching. Mariëlle is a writing coach who's about to launch a pretty cool program. She's a writer herself, so she knows all about the process of doubt and creativity and going through transformation to put yourself out there. So Mariëlle, I want to tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll rock on with the interview.
Hi everyone. I'm also sorry because I have never met Kate before. But yeah, babies come when they come.
Exactly.
So let's just, let's keep our fingers crossed everything's going okay. So thank you, Sherry, and also Kate for inviting me. So I'm Mariëlle. I won't give you the Dutch pronunciation of my name. Mariëlle is fine. At least you people can pronounce my last name. Because
exactly.
If Dutch to try it, they spit in your face. So sometimes you win. What I'm a writing coach indeed, and we'll talk a little bit about my program. I think I'm also an editor. So fiction, nonfiction. I actually come from an academic background, so I started my editing as an academic editor. That was really my niche for a long time, until I began to realize that at one point in my life, I stopped writing. Mm-hmm. Due to all sorts of limiting beliefs I had about creativity. But once I got that fire going on again, I started meeting people who were also writing and started editing their books. So eventually I became an editor of everything really, and also a writing coach. Because I know the process. I know what it's like to have these doubts, to not being able to put yourself in the chair when you want to. If you're writing, all your deadlines are your own. Mm-hmm. And those are the easiest deadlines to skip.
Exactly.
Especially when life gets in the way, and life does get in the way. I mean, you see it now with the baby coming. Some things you don't have control over, but I love working on the things that you do have control over. And as I said, I'm also a writer.
Yes, and one thing I actually would love to jump in and ask you about that there, because this was something that I struggled with, and who actually helped me with this was listening to the Creative Pen and Jay at Penn, Joanna. And she also came from an academic background, and her mother's a literature professor, I do believe, and she really struggled with the fact that, books had to be books with a big B, literature with a big L, you know, and she had a lot of limiting beliefs there about, and now she writes thrillers quite successfully and loves writing them. But there was a really big struggle there of, this is what I should be writing. This is what I want to write. How do I make these meet? And it sounds a little bit like, as well, if you're coming from an academic background and you want to be a writer, there's so much limitations going on in your brain, but it's also reinforced outside. And I think these are some of the strongest things to fight against, this whole struggle between, well, everyone else is telling me too that this isn't worth writing. How would you deal with that yourself? But also when a client comes to you and sits there and goes, I have all these books in my head, but I've got all these ideas of what it should be, and what I'm writing isn't it. And I think that's one of the biggest things the writer's block is, just this fear of what's in my head isn't translating onto the page, and therefore I'm crap.
Yes, well, that's exactly. I've been a quote unquote writer. I've always written stories ever since I was a little girl. And I think for most people who write now and who tell people that they are writers, or more people nowadays are claiming the label. Mm-hmm. And I tell my clients as well, they're well, I want to be a writer. No, if you have a pen and a piece of paper, you are a writer. That's just what it is. Some people say you cannot be an author until you publish. Well, let's not go into that debate. If you write, you're a writer. Mm-hmm. So I've always written stories. I was always doing that, but I always kept it hidden. Mm-hmm. And when I was younger, it was more because, knowing that being a writer wasn't it's not a lot of people make it out there as a writer. Mm-hmm. Of course, we live in a completely different era now because of self-publishing. But when it was just traditional publishing, you really had to make it. So that was my first limitation. And then, of course, I have a BA in English literature. That's literature with a capital L.
Exactly.
It's heavy stuff. And who writes like that? Like who writes like Hemingway? Hemingway does. That's the thing. That's what I learned. Like only Hemingway like writes like Hemingway, so it's fine. Like there are so many voices out there, and I know people who hate Hemingway anyway. So
well, this is the other thing, right? No one is 100%. Go to any Amazon, and Harry Potter are people who hate on him.
I was just gonna say, there are people who cannot get into J.K. Rowling. I'm like, what? But that's just fine. It's fine. But I think that's one of the biggest lessons. Like, so there will be someone out there for your voice as well. But yeah, for me, especially because I think officially most people now know that I'm no longer finishing my PhD at the university. I'm still teaching there. I'm teaching there until February, and that's when I'll say goodbye to the university, probably forever.
Which is impressive. That's a big step.
A very big step for me, very big step for me. So, but I think at this point, most people realize that I'm not going to finish the PhD. If you don't know that yet,
I outed myself, right?
Yeah, I'm not going to do it. And that was also like I did research after the literature of Anne Enright, who is like literature with a capital L. Like she won the Man Booker Prize, for example. So she's really big in Ireland. And I read that through feminist philosophy. And then people are like, so what do you write? I write young adult fantasy. For the longest time. And I love the genre. I love the genre myself. For the longest time, that was so embarrassing for me. And the only thing that I could sort of make it work when I explained this to my colleagues, for example, is that the philosophy that I use to read Anne Enright's work, it is layered in my work.
Yes.
And no one will ever see that because my audience won't know that. But for me, I use the fantasy world to go through certain psychoanalytic aspects of the individual, for example. So that's what I do. So for the longest time, I had to use that. As but I put really dense feminist post-Freudian theory into my young adult fantasy fiction. Yeah, but that exactly. So that making that step. And having people read that as well. Like the first time someone read my work, and I knew this person from the BA in English.
Which makes it, I think, even harder.
Yes, and she writes, actually, we still read each other's work. She writes literature.
Okay, so there's lots of pressure there, lots of...
Yes, but she loved it.
Oh, see, isn't that wonderful? You put yourself out there and it worked. Yeah.
Yes, and I have people who are like, I don't like Harry Potter, because I have my book is now my first book is now with the beta readers, and I got a few back, and I have some people who are like, I don't really like reading Harry Potter, but your book, oh my God, your book. So I'm like, okay, it's all good, and these are also the people who are like, you need to quit that PhD, you need to do this.
Yeah, and I think. Well, and I think this is something also worth talking about because a lot of our listeners are very much at the beginning stage. They're either at the still thinking about it or just tiptoeing into it. You know, I call it the caterpillar phase because it's just easier than saying chrysalis. I can't say that word, so we go with cocoon. You know what I mean? But it's the whole messy middle. It's the dissolving. It's the getting ready to transform. And it's the part that we all want to skip over. No one wants to go through that awkward, messy middle in between of going from, you know, I'm an academic, I'm doing my PhD, I've got my together, to I'm waiting out, beginning author, not even sure I want to do this anymore. Who am I without the titles? And it's a new transformation that you have to go through. And in the end, I think you get to be the butterfly, but most of our readers are quite nervous about that whole, what do I give up to get there? You know, the whole devil I know is much more comfortable than the devil I don't. What if it doesn't work? What if it fails? You know, and they have all these doubts and questions, and it's all really about just letting go and jumping, but the fear is strong. And I think especially, so what would you say to that? Like, how would you say, okay, now you did it. How did you do it though? How did you get over that fear?
Well, that's the funny thing is that the fear is still, because that's the thing, like I'm not only at this point, and you said we could talk about this, is that, because what I've always had, like, so I started my editing company about 5 years ago, and it was always just this sort of side job that I had, because my academic, that's the real job. Like
right,
the
exactly.
teaching, the research, that's the real job. Like this is just, for fun, because I love doing that, which also made it really difficult at first to ask proper money for it.
Yes, this is
Yeah,
something we can talk about for sure. Yes.
So I had that, and now I know, like, I want to make that switch. And there are two things. Of course, the switch is always scary, because it's that's the thing. It's not even a free fall because I have my client base. So, but it still feels like a free fall. And I think, and this is an interesting. I wonder what you have to say about that. Is that I am really good at teaching, and I don't want to do it anymore.
Then don't.
But for a lot of people, they're like, but you're so good at it. And I think for a lot of listeners as well, it's like if you have a job that you're good at, you're good at. Yeah, it's the golden cage.
Yes.
Yes, you're good at it.
Keeping you safe.
It's keeping you safe. Why would you give up? Because there's something else. And it's not as if teaching doesn't fulfill me, but in this day, and like this day, the way the universities are changing, yeah, it's becoming extremely stressful, work pressure-wise, but also what they expect of students, what they, the whole mindset. The university is no longer this sort of free place where we can think. It's all very structured and boxed. So it's very limited. It's very suffocating.
That's why I left it, actually.
Yeah. So tomorrow I teach the whole day, and that's great fun. Like being with the students in a room, that is great fun. But the moment I leave that room and I open my email, I'm like, I need to get out of this world as soon as possible. Like it's over for me. And that's the thing. So for me, it's not just like if you are in a crappy job and you want to become a writer, great. Because if it's crap, leave it behind. But what if you're doing something that's very comfortable and you know you can do it well? How then do you decide, but this is not where my heart belongs? I think that's even more difficult.
Of course. It's your brain trying to kill you, keeping you safe.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like it convinces you. It's telling you all the stories about why you should stay and why you're crazy to give it up. But as far as I'm concerned, if your heart is not in it, if you even think you shouldn't be there, there's a reason why you shouldn't be there. You need to convince yourself to be someplace. There's something wrong with it. No matter how tiny it looks, that's the golden cage trapping you into a safe life that's not going to fulfill you.
Yes. So what I actually did is I created an outcome. So I knew I had this contract until the 14th of February. So what I did is I booked a one-way ticket for the 28th.
Nice.
So now everyone, yes, I'm out of here. And so everyone at my university now knows I'm out of here.
And have you told everyone what you're going to do? Because this is a secret, because it's absolutely blissful.
It's not. Wonderful. Yeah, no, it's not. It's no longer a secret. People begin to know. So I have this. Last year I was on holiday and I was in Cyprus, which is I was going to say small island. It's not that small actually. It's an island. It's underneath. It's half of it is they speak Greek, half of it they speak Turkish. So if you know Turkey, it's like right underneath Turkey, very close to Syria, which always makes people freak out. And I was there last November because my mom turned 60, and all I could do was write. Like I skipped almost all the fun things for them. Fun things. I mean, I'm an introvert, so I don't mind sitting at the pool writing. And then last June I went back.
Okay.
And I had the exact it just flow through. Like I went with a friend, my co-author. We also write. So that's the thing. I don't only write young adult fantasy. I've also started writing romance with a friend, so under a pen name. And not really. We didn't pick the pen name because we're like, ooh, it's romance, but because we're both. She writes. She's Canadian. She writes literature. Like with the capital. Well, she says it's not literature, but I'm her editor.
Okay.
Yeah, it's literature, capital L. Yeah, it really is. And I write my young adult fantasy. So we're like, we need a pen name because it's a completely different genre. So we were there also to scout places, locations, and it was just like we just sat there like on the beach, just writing, thinking, and I was open. Like it just, and I was like, yeah, I need to be here. Like this is the place where I need to be. So I'm going to Cyprus, and I have plans because she had the same thing. So I know there is something about the atmosphere there. So my plan is once I get settled, is also to start doing like custom writer retreats.
Oh, sign me up to that. I'll be
Yes,
there.
yes. I'm thinking very close. So we really, because I'm in the middle of getting my life coach certification.
Mm-hmm.
So I becoming more. I'm going into the coaching more and more and more. So I'm thinking small groups, maybe individuals, maybe people who write together, write about co-authors, and we'll customize a program. We talk about that beforehand, so that the moment you hit the island, the whole week is for you.
Bliss.
That's my plan, because that is it's the perfect atmosphere. That island, it's the perfect atmosphere for that. So once I get settled, this is what I'm doing.
Lovely.
And I know that my this is what I need. This is what I need to be doing.
And how do you trust that? Because this is something that really we talk about a lot. We talk about the fear. We talk about moving past the fear and into the trust. So then how do you make that step then? How do you go, okay, I'm kind of stepping into the messy middle. I'm starting to dissolve. I'm finding out my true alignment. I'm making those major scary decisions. And then all of a sudden you start transforming, because that's what happens. You go into,
Yeah.
How do you trust that?
I have a past with social anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people think it's funny, because when they meet me, they're like, how can you be like, you're not an anxious person? But like a couple of years ago, I couldn't do grocery shopping without having a major breakdown. So I moved over, like I'm beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
I do realize that you can always go back, so I have to take care like of myself. And
exactly.
to do that, I'm a huge yoga fan. I meditate every day. And at one point, I just realized that you hear a lot of voices in your head, and some of them are very negative, but there are also the other ones. And at one point, I was able to distill the ones that were aligned with what I wanted to do.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and the other thing that I have that I still like, this is a scary step for me. Like, I'm burning bridges.
Mm-hmm. I'm
leaving my cats behind. Like, that's a thing for me. It's like, that's going to be the most dramatic part, like leaving my animals behind. Because they're staying with my eggs, so and it's fair. I'm not gonna move like 2 cats to a tropical island, so it is what it is. But I know I keep and I do have fears, like how am I gonna find a house? How am I gonna do this? But at the end of the day, I'm like, it doesn't really matter, because usually when I got fear, I didn't do it. And with this, I just know I can worry all that I want, but I'm going anyway.
Yes. Exactly.
So that's the thing. This feeling that, but I need to be there anyway. So I just know that I need to be there.
And
I stop making excuses.
Yes.
And bought the ticket.
And then things you're forced into, because I think this is actually really essential. Like, people often ask me too, like, how do you travel and everything else? Buy the ticket, set the date, tell people, because if you don't do this, you push it off and push it off, and someday becomes never. Whereas as soon as you have a ticket, all of a sudden you're like, okay, now there's time pressure. I have a containment that the universe has to work with me to find the house, to find the place. And if I don't, I will trust that the Airbnb is where I need to be to meet somebody who's going to show me the most amazing house that was never online. But all of a sudden you're forced into, wait, now something I never would have done, I need to commit to. Okay, I'm moving to an island and I'm going to be in an Airbnb for the first 2 weeks. And then you open yourself up to so many different new experiences, but you need to make that initial
commitment. Yeah. And that's the thing, is that, and one of the things, and it's really funny, recently someone looked at my hands and they're like, oh, you have issues committing. I'm like, what? And it's actually, I mean, I wasn't, what do you mean? I was like, why are you calling me out? Like, oh no.
Exactly. How'd you figure this out so fast?
Yeah, it's big. Apparently it's the pinky.
Oh, okay.
Apparently it's the pinky. Yeah, who knew? Yeah. And I don't ask me what it is about my pinkies, but something about my pinky.
Trying to compare.
Apparently I'm doing better in this life, she says.
Okay.
So this for me was a commitment. And the only thing non-committal about it is that I bought a more luxury ticket. So I can change the date.
Okay.
If something happens, because this is when I booked it, it was 5.5 months away.
Right.
If something happens, I can go a few days early. I can go. That's the only thing. That's the only thing I did. But yeah, I booked the Airbnb. I paid for the Airbnb. So I did all of that. But yeah, commitment. That's the thing. And I think, and I'm reading this book now. because also a lot of people don't know about me is that I'm also a very spiritual person, which I don't always use in my coaching. Really, very much depends. Like I have clients who like rave about it, and I have clients who are clearly not into that. So I just don't even open that. I'm reading this book now on manifestation through the chakras. And it's really funny that I'm now reading. So you work from the top to the top, so from the crown chakra
down to the root. Okay.
Yeah,
I would have done the opposite. I would have thought the rooting is the important part.
No, that's the final part, because this is your visualization. This is your inspiration, your visualization, communicating about it, connecting people to the cause, your willpower to make it happen, having fun in the process, and manifesting it in the real world. And I'm now reading the last chapter, so the chapter on the root chakra, and I'm like, and it's all about commitment, because you can say to people, "I want to do this." So, and I was like, it's really good, because I have trouble grounding myself. I can be really stuck in my head. Also, academic background, so the thinking. Yes. And I'm like, oh, so grounding and commitment, those two, they're connected. Yeah. So I was just reading this morning. I was like, yeah. So it's the commitment. Yeah.
I think this is huge, and I also think that this also works when writing a book. I mean, again, it's the whole inspiration.
Yes.
Planning it out, actually doing the writing, connecting to it, and being proud enough of it that you can put it out there.
Absolutely. It works exactly the same, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, which again, like I've been kind of going about it backwards. Like I always think, okay, root first, and then turn around and try to do stuff.
But she talks about that, and I would have to look it up. She talks about in the introduction that for certain things you need to go root up.
Okay.
It just says to get something out in the real world. Yeah. Because this is where it starts, and it is true. And if it's as you said, like it's very similar to the writing process, also. And that's one of the things that I'm quite critical about when I look at like the Facebook groups and the forum that I'm a member of, is that a lot of people are so focused on how they have to do it that they don't have fun anymore. And that is, of course, that second chakra. The having fun, the playfulness, stop taking yourself so seriously. And I mean, that's something that's always my issue, because I'm a very serious person. I need to play more. But yeah, that we forget that. Like, you can have the willpower to do it, but in the willpower, I always become a little mean to myself. You need to do this.
Took me a long time to stop doing that.
Yeah. So can you have that willpower that I'm going to do this in a very playful, fun? Can you be playful and serious? So that's going to be a challenge for me. That's going to be my next challenge. But yeah, that's what you need, because otherwise you can bring it out into the world, but if you don't love it, or if you didn't love the process, then what good is the goal?
And this is my thing too. When we're talking about writing, whenever I talk to people, and I'm no longer doing the coaching, but when I was doing it and I was talking to people about why they're doing it and where they're getting stuck at, this was often what was going on, that it stopped being fun and it became a chore and it became something that they dreaded. And at the same time, it's like, well, then why do you want to write?
Yes.
If you're not connecting with that passion, that joy, get a job. You know, like you set someplace else. If this has all of a sudden become a horrible, dreadful thing that you're doing to yourself, let it go, or let's find out.
Absolutely.
And then often they fight me there. It's like, no, I want to do this. Okay, then you do want to do this. Then let's find that joy, that passion, and come back to it again. Because obviously somewhere along the lines, you started listening to other people. You started bringing in things that you don't need, This is often something that people really struggle with, this whole, other people are doing it this way, so I had to do it this way. It was the same thing with me with literature and writing fun samurai fiction that's like, based on myth. And all of a sudden you're like, this is not real. Of course it's not real. It's fiction. It's fun. It's what I want to do. And I think it's amazing. I get paid to do it. At the same time, if you're like, okay, I've got this much money I need to make every single month. And then all of a sudden you're going to turn something that's your passion and try to wring the money out of that first.
Yeah.
And I really believe that no matter what your passion is like you said earlier in the podcast, someone will love it. Your people are out there. But the more obscure it is, the longer it's going to take. So it is not fair to expect your first year to even 3-4 years of writing to really replace a full income. If you're lucky, it will, but it's often a little bit like winning the lottery, that you need to build this up, especially if you're writing obscure things. And yes, it's true, when you write to market, you can come out fast. And if you love writing to market, if that's part of what you love, I say, do it. go for it. If that's giving you a rush, a joy, you're like looking at your bank account and going, I can't believe I get paid to do this, you're on the right path. But if you're stressing out, hating your life, going, oh, why am I even doing this? You can be doing corporate and at least leave it.
And at least get loads of money.
Exactly.
Yes. And that's the thing, and that's also like that for me. Like the writing to market. Like I'm writing the romance now with my friend. But I really love writing these stories. We're co-writing, so I do the plot, I do the outline. She does the first draft, I do the second draft. We send it out to some beta readers. She goes over it again, I go over it again, and that's how we sort of move through that. But I love these stories, and so I'm lucky because when we were gonna try this, we're just like, let's just try this. Let's just see if this is fun, you know. And we're like, if we don't like it, if we don't love the process, we won't do it. Because that's the thing, if you just, and a lot of people think that romance is like this gold mine. For some people, yes, but readers will always know. Readers, I recently, I don't even know which group it was, but one of the Facebook groups I'm a member of, someone said, my wife tells me I need to write a romance because apparently that's where the money is. I need tips. I really hate this genre.
Oh, don't write in it then.
don't write the romance. Don't write romance. Yeah, don't do it. Don't do it yourself, because this is your writing, and even if it is a job, you picked it because it's a fun job. And of course, it's hard sometimes, and it's a struggle sometimes. But at the end of the day, it should give you more fun. It should give you more energy than it's going to cost you. And I think what I see around me, a lot of people go have that backwards somehow. They turn it into just another job that they end up hating.
Yes, which I think is so terribly, horribly wrong, and absolutely what it's not about.
Yeah, and I think part of it is that's just part of it. Is like this old mindset that you have to be miserable. If you want to be a successful creator, you have to be miserable.
Or poor.
I think both actually. Yeah. I think it's Liz Gilbert who writes about that in Big Magic. Her book.
I love that. Yes.
And that she writes about this. You have to suffer, like the ever. And Todd Rundgren has a song about that, like the ever tortured popular artist or something. And I'm not saying it's always easy, but it should be fun. It's like when people ask me, so why do people hire you? Like, there are so many books out there on, author mindset and staying inspired. It's because sometimes you need to dig a little deeper to get back to the point. Okay, so why did you ever started this project? What is the reasoning behind it? And if the one reason is because they wanted to make money, good luck with that. Like, it has to be a little more like inspiration. Inspiration doesn't give a shit about your bank account. Absolutely not. So, and that's why people that's what I talk about with my clients anyway. Some of them depend, like they hire me for all kinds of issues that they can't work through. Sometimes they just need a sounding board for their plot, and we talk about it for an hour, and then they can finish the book all of a sudden because they just didn't think of something. That happens often as well. And sometimes we just need to go a little deeper and go like, okay, so you now hate the project.
Right, exactly. How do you change that?
Yeah, and I recently had a client, and she was. That's funny. It's actually it picks up on all these things that you just talked about. Being part of these groups, of these, how do you become a writer, a successful writer? She knew she had to do a reader magnet. But she was writing the reader magnet. It was going to be a novella, and she was like, I have the plot outline. But something's missing. There's no life in it. There is nothing. So she posted something on a group like, I need a writing coach because I'm stuck. And I was like, well, I don't want to self-promote, but if you have a writing coach,
you asked.
If you want my link, send me a direct message. So she hired me, and it took us an hour to figure out that. Well, first have an intake. I always do an intake, just a free intake to first see if we actually connect. So during the intake, the intake never takes half an hour. It took me 45 minutes because we started on this thing, and we talked about. She wanted it to connect to the third book, but she didn't know what the third book was going to be about. So how can she write a novella? So it was all like turns out she was much more enthusiastic about the third book. So that is the book that we talked about in our coaching session. And at one point she was like, I just don't need to, I shouldn't even finish this novella. It's not what I want to write. But the thing is, she wanted to write it because she had this thing in her head that she had to have a reader magnet. She had to have something she could give to her audience for free in order to have people sign up to her mailing list. And then because a lot of people don't know the whole novella or the prequel novella as a reader magnet. That's a big thing right now. Like a lot of people use that. And I was like,
Nick Stephenson has a whole course based around this whole premise of it. I mean, he's making a lot of money from this.
Yes, but there were so many more. So she was like, so now I'm not going to write the novella. And she was really like, I felt the relief. Like I felt the shame. I'm like, I don't have to finish this book. But she did say, but now I have all this material. And it's an interesting story. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. So the format wasn't right for her. So I was like, so why don't you turn it into a short story? Why don't you look at your trilogy, pick everything that you would love to say more about, like all the darlings you have to kill, for example, but it doesn't fit within your book. Just take that, turn it into short stories, and give that to your audience, for example, in between your release dates, to keep them wanting. And she was like blown away, and I was like, this is just another way of doing read a magnet, but because some voices are so big, like in the crowd right now, we forget that there are so many options.
And also, I think this is also part of the problem, that human beings love having a pattern that's going to work. And in fairness, I mean, I've never done Nick's course, but I'm on his mailing list. He's actually highly entertaining. If you ever want to like learn how to write a mailing list, I mean, they're quite funny. But he's never ever actually said it has to be novella. He's even said, make it character sketches, make it outlines, make it anything, make it a video of you talking about like whatever calls to you.
Yeah.
But he focuses on the novella because it's...
Yeah, and that's what people take away. Yeah.
And all of a sudden, and it worked for a couple of people, and all of a sudden it's like, that's what you have to do. And again, it's like, look at what's working. And then I would say, think to yourself, does it work for me? Yeah. No, yes. If no, how can I do something similar that would, you know, because it's not the short story or the novella that really is what has to be. It is, how do I get people in?
How do you,
you know, and what lights you up in creating this? You know, if you're going to sit there gnawing on your veins, don't do it. You know?
Yeah, that's the thing with lights. And that's the funny thing is that, because I thought, because as we were talking, I was convinced she just didn't want to write that story. So then we were done. She had like, she knew how she was going to write the third book, but she hadn't, previously to contacting me, she had no idea what the third book was going to be about. And now she was like, oh my God, I know what my third book is going to be about. So the whole trilogy was clear to her now. Because of course I also, before we talked, I was like, send me the outline of all the books. So she had to sit down and think about it. So that for that 1 hour that we had, she got so far. And then she said, and because she said, if she had said that's a waste of time on the novella, I would have been like, no, you learned something. But because she focused on, now I have this story, like I'm gonna throw out. And I just heard that she was like, there's something in the story though. And I was like, well, then use the story, but don't put it into a 50K book.
This is our brain trying to kill us in order to keep us alive. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I was like, just. Yes, and that's another reason, like why people, and you know that as a writer, like that's why people need coaches, because whether I'm not gonna say, like, some people actually need like a professional therapist.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna be saying anything about that. If you need one, go get one.
Exactly.
But for people like writing coaches, life coaches, what we do is we just show you other perspectives because you got so stuck.
Exactly.
And we just tell you, let's sit down, slow down, take a deep breath, lean back, see what's going on. That's what we do.
Exactly. And that's the reason why you said, like, why don't people just use books? I always think that the book is your first step, but books will never call you on your bullshit. You know what I mean?
No, and also, and it's not universal. It's not universal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's never, not one, I've never talked to, look, people have similar problems. So we can call them, well, issues like lack of self-worth, fear of failure, or fear of success.
The real one.
Yeah, I know. I would know. But the reason why you have that fear, or why you haven't been able to tackle it, or why you keep prioritizing other people, that's a very personal issue, and you can read as many books as you want. So you can get, please read the books before you contact people like us, because that makes the process with us go so much faster, because you've done most of the work, and then we're done. We'll be done soon. So do read the books. But if you remain stuck, you need someone to grab your hand and say, okay, let's take a step back and see what we got here.
Exactly. And I think this is actually a perfect way to kind of wrap this up, but also go into this program that you're launching as of, I think it's next week when this goes live. It's going live, I think, the last week of October. I need to double check my dates, but it's either in 1 week or 2 weeks. So tell us a little bit about that, how it works out actually quite perfectly for someone who's kind of like, I want the commitment of a coach, but I'm not sure what to do. How do I do this? Tell us a little bit about the program you've got coming up.
Yeah, so depending on when this goes out, the program starts the 5th of November. It's actually, I took a 2-week period because I know people will be rounding off stuff, and this is a commitment. The program is a commitment. So I was like, we either start the week of November 5 or the week of November 12, whatever works for you. And then if we start on the Monday, we'll start on the Monday for you. If you need the Thursday, it's good. So I got a little room there because it's quite a commitment. From the day that we start, you'll have the 3 months, or actually 3.5 months, because it's a Christmas break. Yeah, so for me, like, the reason why I launched it, like how I got to this program, is because I see so many people, as you said at the beginning as well, is that they want to write something, but sometimes they know what they want to write about, or they're getting to that point, but how do you start? There's so many information out there. So it's just people who are overwhelmed, like, I know I need to write this book, but there is so much fear. I don't know where the fear is coming from. Am I doing this right?
Sometimes when they lie about the fear too, they think that's writer's block. I just don't have an idea. I just can't. I'm just a wall. But it's not really writer's block. It's fear. No, writer's block is always fear. You can lie to yourself about the fear, but it's fear.
And often writer's block has nothing to do. Sometimes it has to do with what you're writing. It can be, you can get blocked because you're writing about something, or you want to write about something, and you haven't given yourself permission to write about. For example, if you write a memoir, a lot of people write memoirs. They go through this period. They're like, once I write this down, my family, my parents, depending on the topic, of course. So they need to give themselves permission. And that takes a little while, and it's really good to have someone, to hold your hand and go through the process with you, because that makes the process a little less daunting. Like if you have someone who can, walk you through it. Some people are just plain overwhelmed by all the how do you write a book, and it's like it's a very personal thing. So it's also like if you read 10 books, your perfect method will be somewhere in the middle.
Exactly.
Yeah, so then even if you read the 10 books, doesn't not guarantee that you can start. So people like that, people are like, I know I have this book in me, but I don't know, should I write? Who wants to hear my voice? I know I have to do this, but there's so much.
Tomorrow. Monday.
Yeah. No, November 5th.
First day of summer. That's what I mean. It's November 5th.
I set the date for you. It's November 5th or November 12th. If you can come up, if you can come with a good excuse, we can do November 12th. But November 5th is your date. But also people, because a lot of people write the first draft, and then what? They put it in a drawer and they forget about it, or they just don't know how to do the rest of the process. Because being a writer, if there's one thing I learned in my life, being a writer is rewriting.
Yes.
But once you finish that draft, it means you need to show it to people. So a lot of people finish the book, put it in a drawer, start the next book, put it next to the other book in the drawer, and they never get out of that system, because they need to start communicating about their work, and that's very scary. So if that is your issue, I can help you with that as well. And the other so I have like three possible clients in my head when I started writing this. The other one is if you are like, if you write, you get stuck, you keep getting stuck at the same part, whether that's when you write in the middle, of the book. Maybe you can start your book, but you don't know how to finish it.
Mm-hmm.
Is it your characters? Like if you have a very, if you, maybe you don't even know the problem yet, and that's what we'll figure out. Maybe it's about your characters, maybe it's about your outlining, maybe you go about the whole process in a way, because that's also another thing. There are so many ways of, this is how you need to do this out there. So you keep trying that. It's not really working. What is not working? Well, we have 3 months to figure that out. And that's exactly what the program is for, is we go into that. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to make it 3 months and not like you have all these 6 weeks, you have to write your novel. Now, I wanted to take things a little slower. Also because...
I think it's a good period.
Yeah, it felt really right for me. It's like, this is perfect. But also because it gives us the time also, to let things land. Like if we figure something out, if we need to dig a little deeper, we have some time for that. But also it gives us the time to try different tactics. Then reflect on that. Like there will be, I have worksheets, for example, for this. We'll reflect on your week and then we talk about it and say, okay, so what are we going to try next week? Did this work? Okay, maybe part of it worked. What didn't work? Okay, well, let's try this then. So at the end of the 3 months, we've had a period of the trial and error to see what really works for you. So the goal of the program is that for every participant has their own like this tailor-made writing plan. Like this works for me. Now I know what I need, what I can fall back on when I get fearful or when I have doubts. I know that this system works for me because we create the system. We take the 3 months to create a system that works for you.
This is fantastic. So not just a book, but an actual system that you can then plug in for the next one and the next one, which also involves, I guess it sounds very organic as well, that now you've got your first one out. Maybe things go faster. You realize then other things slow down because all of a sudden you hit that whole like, whoa, I expect something more. Now it's not working. I mean, every single book is a brand new project, a brand new baby, a brand new digging in, and you're finding out things that you thought, okay, I'm over this hurdle. No, I'm not. Actually, there's a new hurdle.
Well, that's the thing. Like I always believe that life's a cycle.
Yes.
So you keep hitting the same obstacles, but if you do it right, you'll have grown in the meantime. So you either go at the obstacle from a different angle, or you have a bit more tools to work with the obstacle, so you go faster. So the next time you hit it. So it's not about because. As I said at the beginning, like I have a history of social anxiety, so I know if I don't take my self-care seriously, I can become that girl again who's afraid to go out to get some groceries.
Exactly.
Because that's just, But now I've learned in the meantime that well, if this starts happening, I'm getting there. I'm like sort of it's a slippery slope. But now I know. Okay, no, I've got tools now to stop myself from going that way.
And so if see the signs earlier before you even have to go all the way down that way.
So if you keep getting blocked in the middle of writing a book, let's figure out together. Let's take some time, some actual time to figure out together what that is. What keeps you blocked? And the next time you see the signs,
I'm going down that road again.
Yes. So I'm tackling this now before it gets too far and I'm stuck again. Yeah.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Okay. And how can people find out? I'll also put it down below, but is it directly on your website or?
Yeah, so that is mswoodsmith.nl, based in the Netherlands, /writing program.
Writing program. Okay. Perfect.
Yes. But we'll put the link up.
Perfect.
You'll put the link up for me.
I'll put the link up, exactly. And I'll put down the full information as well. So if you look down below, both in YouTube and on Anchor, the full information will be there about tiers and pricing and everything else. But also just in case someone's listening right now and just wants to jump fast, there you go. There was something I want to say that time too. Now I just got off track. I was like, ooh, what am I looking at? Oh, yes, but working with you, period. So if they're not interested in the program at the moment, they're like, you know what, that 1 hour, just working through this present thing, because I've got books out. Maybe this doesn't really apply to me, but I do have a stuck point. Can they just contact you to do one-offs?
Yes. As I said, like I have clients who are like, they're just struggling with this particular book.
Right, exactly.
I don't know why. So that's the thing is that as I said, the example that I just gave, she just needed a sounding board. And that's just what we did. I just sat there and she said, and she started talking, and I always thought the thing is that I have trouble letting people like finish their sentence. That's just the thing, and I was always really embarrassed about it until I realized it's just because something hits me. Like I'm like, so I start. So that's the thing is that I have one of my first clients. I always do this sort of feedback. So what is this? Was this okay? What do you need? Do you have any tips? Especially in the beginning, I always ask like, do you have feedback? And she was like, the great thing about you is that you don't tell me what to do, but you just keep asking, firing questions at me until I realize, no, this is the answer.
Exactly.
So I never tell you what the answer is. You have all the answers. You have all the answers.
Exactly.
So that's the thing is like when we talk, I tend to interrupt people just because I'm like, I need to ask this right now. So sometimes it feels like we're going completely like all over the place. So at the end we're like, oh, so this is what I want to do. Oh, and so for this character, oh right, and this is why my plot wasn't working. So yeah, for the one-off, for the people can hire me for the one-off, like just as a sounding board. I also do outlines with people.
Okay.
So really, whatever. I've also had clients who just couldn't prioritize. So we went really into so what, and of course this was this which almost worked full time.
Okay. Yeah.
Like 32 hours or so. So for 4 days. Had 2 kids, and also had a working husband. And had time, but she was struggling, like just sort of like setting time apart for writing. And of course, I mean, this is a very common issue. And then after some digging, and I think there was only like maybe 2 sessions or so. Yeah, I think it's maybe 3 sessions, because this was digging a little deeper. So I also like to take my time then, because I'm not a tarot deck, so I don't slap you in the face. Like I tend to go a little nicer, and I'm a little kinder than that. So we took some time, and then we realized that her whole idea about motherhood, what the mother is, what the mother's supposed to do, and she is still like, we still talk, and she still struggles, but just knowing that this is her struggle, that the only thing she hears then is I don't even think it is her mother. It was someone else. I think maybe a grandmother who was very particular on this is what motherhood should be like.
Yes.
And this is how we grow up.
I mean, I don't know where I got the exact same definition. I don't know if it was from society or what. I mean, my mother always...
I think also, and this is also, she was American. And of course, American motherhood is completely different from Dutch motherhood. So I completely understood, like even that you have to be the 24/7 for your kids.
Yes.
That's much more American than it's Dutch. So I was like, and that's also why I'm very grateful for my academic background, because I have years of feminist philosophy up my sleeve. So I know how society functions, and I know how it works, and I know that a lot of people think society doesn't influence them, but our childhood conditioning, our society conditions us. And just knowing that, and as I said, like she's still struggling with that, and of course it's a very these structures are very pervasive.
I mean, I think this is something that a lot of our listeners also struggle with.
But just knowing, like she could just write down and put it on her desk, like if I hear this voice, it's not my belief.
Exactly. Yes.
Doesn't mean that she's not free of the struggle. But at least now she writes more, because sometimes she feels.
Yes. That's going to happen. You accept that.
Yes. At least,
you check in, you look, and you realize, okay, this was me falling back into these old behaviors. I'm going to beat myself up over that. I'm going to realize, okay, that's what I did. And I see it now. Bravo. Pat myself on the back that I saw what I did. And hopefully next time, again, it happens. Exactly. I can stop it sooner or whatever. But yes. Awesome.
Yes. So this is another thing. So it's always a surprise. Like when someone contacts me, it's always a little bit of a surprise, because sometimes I think we're going to talk about the outline of a book. And then we end up talking about, I don't know, a brother who wanted to be a writer but never could, and now there is guilt, or didn't have the talent, and now there is guilt, and that's what I love about it. It's like okay, so we're going to talk about this, and then sometimes we talk about something completely different, but that's okay. That's we unravel this together.
And I think this is the key thing, and that's, I think, one thing that if we can close on that and leave with that is that, yes, you do need to unravel it, and it's okay to reach out to someone to help you unravel it, because we often can't see the forest because of the trees. You know,
and we do it as
forest,
well.
Our trees. Exactly.
Yeah, but we as well. I have a bunch of people on different levels who unravel different things with me.
Exactly. Yes, of course.
I don't go at this alone. I have my people.
Mm-hmm.
That's completely normal if you need a person, or 2 or 3 or 5.
We need people. No one does it alone.
People. Yeah, no one does it alone. Yeah,
and that's why I think writing was such a struggle for so many people, because the idea is that you need to do it alone, and that's one thing I love about now being a writer is you don't have to do it alone.
No, not anymore. We're done. We're done with that. Yeah,
exactly.
I'm really glad. Yeah. I'm really grateful for that.
Me too. All right, thank you so much for joining us today. I love it. I'm sure your program is going to be a huge success. And again, guys, reach out to Mariëlle because she's absolutely fabulous. And she does lives every week. So you can also be catching her on
Yeah, I talk about an author mindset every Monday morning.
Which is perfect.
On Facebook, yeah.
Go do mine now.
Yes,
Thank
yes.
you.
Okay.
All right, bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Bye, Jerry.
Bye-bye.